All right, so we're looking at writing equations of perpendicular lines now. We had just looked at parallel lines. Two lines are perpendicular if and only if. Remember what that statement means? That statement means it goes back and forth, right? If they intersect at a 90-degree angle. So if they intersect at a 90-degree angle, we know they're perpendicular. We know they're perpendicular. If we know they're perpendicular, we know they intersect at a 90-degree angle. So here's two lines that are perpendicular. If you got out a protractor, you could see that that's a 90-degree angle. So we know they're perpendicular, but what are we going to do? How are we going to figure that out if we don't have a protractor and a graph? So again, just like the slopes of the parallel lines, they were the same. How are the slopes of the perpendicular lines related? So I'm going to pick 2 points here and here. And this looks like it's down 2 and over 3. Down 2 over 3. So the slope of the red line is negative 2/3. And let's look at the blue line. Looks like it's up 3 and over 2. So we have two different slopes, 3 over 2 and negative 2 over 3. How are these slopes related? Well, the 3/2 is positive and the negative 2/3 is negative. That means they're opposite sign. And the fractions are reciprocals of each other, right? If I flip this fraction 3/2, I get the fraction 2/3. So that's reciprocal. So I have opposite reciprocals, and that is what we know about the slopes of perpendicular lines. So the slopes of two perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals. Or if the slopes, if we know the slopes are opposite reciprocals, then we can also say that they are perpendicular, same thing. So let's look at these two. This first example was 2/3 and negative, well, it was negative 2/3 and positive 3/2, but if I have positive 2/3 and negative 3/2, are they opposite reciprocals? And the answer is yes. They're opposite, and they are reciprocals. What about 4 and 1/4? 4 and 1/4 are reciprocals, but are they opposites? But no, they are not opposites. So two lines that are positive 4 and positive 1/4 would not be perpendicular. And if you think about that slope of a line up 4 over 1, positive, and then up 1 over 4, you can see, just kind of by happenstance there, it's not perpendicular. It doesn't look like it would be. What about 5/2 and negative 2/5? Well, 5/2 and 2/5 are reciprocals, and one's positive, one's negative, so they are opposite reciprocals. So yes, those two slopes would be perpendicular. And then negative 1/3 and 3. Remember that when it's a whole number, we put a 1 underneath it, and then you flip it. So they're definitely reciprocals, and they're opposite signs. So we have also a yes for perpendicular or opposite reciprocal slopes. That's what you're looking for. So here we have determine which lines, if any, are parallel or perpendicular. So we want to identify the slopes. In some of these equations, we're going to have to get y by itself to do that. So for line B, I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to subtract x. And I get 4y equals negative x plus 3. I'll divide by 4. And y equals negative 1/4. Remember, there's an invisible 1 in front of the x. So that's negative 1/4 x plus 3/4. So the slope for line A is 4. The slope for line B is negative 1/4. So A and B are perpendicular. A and B are perpendicular. And the symbol for that is a little upside down T. And now let's see what C is in relation to all this. So let's add 2x. Remember, we always look to get y by itself. So negative 8y equals 2x plus 16. Divide by negative 8. And we get y equals negative 1/4. 2 over 8 reduces to 1/4 x minus 2. So we have a slope of negative 1/4. So A and C are also perpendicular. A and C are perpendicular, and B and C are parallel. Can you pause it and do the second one? Give this a try. Solve for y, see what you get. Okay, now that you've tried it yourself, let's see what happens. I'm going to get y by itself, so minus the 2x, 6y equals negative 2x minus 3, divided by 6. And y is 2/6 reduces to 1/3 x minus 1/2. So m is negative 1/3. And line B, m equals 3. It's already in slope-intercept form for us. Minus 18x. On line C, negative 6y equals negative 18x plus 9. Divided by negative 6. We get y equals 3x. Negative 18 divided by negative 6 is 3. Minus 3 over 2. Reduce that fraction. Divided by the 9 by 3 and the 6 by 3. So my m is 3 here. So that means C and B are parallel. So C, let's see, B is parallel to C. We looked at that notation yesterday, or on the other video on parallel lines. So B is parallel to C. A and B are opposite reciprocals, so A is perpendicular to B, and A is also perpendicular to C. And you can write that out in words, but I don't have a lot of space here. So we're going to write equations just like we did with parallel lines. I'm going to identify the slope. But with perpendicular, that means I'm not going to use the exact slope. I'm going to use the opposite reciprocal if I want to write a perpendicular line. So write the equation of a line that passes through negative 3, 1. So this is our point. And it's perpendicular to a line with y equals 1/2. So I'm going to take 1/2. I'm going to flip it and make it the opposite sign. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1, and 1/2 is positive, so I'm going to make it negative. So my perpendicular line is going to have a slope of negative 2. And then I use my point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We have y minus y1, that's 1. And we're going to have m, and we'll have x1, okay? Equals negative 2 times x minus negative 3. And then we simplify. Minus a negative becomes plus. So we get y minus 1 equals, distribute my negative 2, negative 2x minus 6, add 1, and y equals negative 2x minus 5. So again, verify that your slopes are opposite reciprocals, and they are. And so y equals negative 2x minus 5 would be perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x plus 3, and it passes through the point negative 3, 1. So again, pause my video right now, give the second one a try, and see if you get the same answer as I do. Okay, so you tried it yourself. Again, we're looking at perpendicular. So my slope here is 3. So the opposite slope, or sorry, the slope here is -3. So the opposite slope is going to be positive, and the reciprocal of 3 over 1 is going to be 1/3. So we have m is positive 1/3. And then, let's see, what do we got here? Here's our y1, here's our x1, and our m to put into the equation. So y minus y1 is 5 equals m 1/3 times x minus -3 again. Again, that becomes plus a positive, minus a negative becomes plus a positive. So I get y minus 5. I have to do that in black. I need to distribute 1/3. So 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. 1/3 times 3 over 1 equals 3 over 3, which equals 1, or 1/3 of 3 is 1. So that's plus 1. And then we will add 5. And we get y equals 1/3 x plus 6. And this is the equation of the line that is perpendicular to y equals -3x minus 1 and passes through the point -3, 5.